должно было быть. Мы просто напали на соседей без причины и нарисовали выдуманные какие-то причины. И это плохо в 21 веке так делать.
Okay.
What's he say?
Well, he said that I think it's this war that shouldn't happen because we just break in our neighbor's country and without any reason we just killing them, and this is not what should happen in these times in 21st century. Are already filming, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I personally, of course, like I immigrated from Russia in 2015, and one of the reasons I immigrated was that like I felt that I'm growing up or living in a country of aggressor. I remember I was 6 years old when it was Afghan war, and I think I didn't know much as a kid, but I just remember it was on TV. And it was fascinating when I was living in London already to meet these people who were refugees from this Afghan war, and they live in North London in a station, Harrow, where I was like working few months, and it was just fascinating to see that of course these people had a better life in UK than in maybe Afghanistan, but it was like interesting to see the outcome that invasion that Russia made when I was a kid. And just like as I was growing up internally in the country, you never could feel safe just because of how country made, how country works, because of corruption in all levels. So yeah, I always wanted to immigrate, and I made it when I was like 29 years old. And actually one of my immigration was like a process with a few steps. One of the steps was actually when Russia annexed Crimea. I just felt like I can't stay in Russia. Like I just feel not good. And I left to USA at this time, and I stayed in USA for 3 months, like as a tourist. And then I figured we returned to Russia occasionally, and I immigrated later in UK. But yeah, I feel like this is not a country to live, and I know a lot of people around me as well wanted to make this move, and it's just not always easy for people because to immigrate you need at least 2 things: language and documents. And I had both of them, but many people couldn't afford it, and with this war you can feel that like a lot of people want to immigrate, and then now they're trying to make it in kind of very emergency kind of way, like fleeing to Turkey or to any country which are visa free for Russians.
So introduce the 2 of you just very quickly.
So this is my husband Yuri. We met in Russia when I was still living in Russia in 2010, and we decided to get married just this January 2022, when I was living in UK. So we got married in May, and we decided to get married 1 month before the war started. And it was a little bit uncomfortable to figure out how to do all the things, and we initially decided to get married in Seychelles just because of a good location, and so we did. It was a miracle that we managed because all the planes was cancelled from Russia, and it was good that this destination was not cancelled and it's visa free for him. So we were able to get married, and now we're in Estonia. And yeah, so like he's still moving back to Russia occasionally, crossing the border.
So let me ask you about that, Yuri. You still have to work in Russia, which means crossing that border back and forth. How has that gotten more difficult for you since the war?
У меня есть мульти-шенген. I have Schengen visa.
So yeah, he has we applied for residency to live in Estonia to join me because I am a citizen of Estonia. But he only have a Schengen visa now, so he's traveling now with a Belarus passport and Schengen visa. And we are still waiting for residency. So when he will have a residency, it will be kind of no problem or like easier. But yeah, it's just the border is not very friendly to Russian people because they are like just making sure, obviously, that people who are crossing the border they actually husband, because our marriage is quite fresh. So they just double checking everything about our marriage, but they just the way how they do it. They're not doing it in a nice way. You feel a little bit violated after crossing the border, and you like want to plan your life to cross it less and less.
How long did it take you to cross the border the last time you crossed?
Последний раз, как долго ты пересекал границу?
5 hours.
5 hours?
Не, на машине.
Ну, 5 часов.
Yeah. So when he was last crossing border by car, it took 5 hours to cross the border. If you travel on the bus, it's shorter. It's on the bus 1 or 2 hours on the bus.
Okay, 2-3 hours. So let me get this straight. You were born in Crimea.
I was born in St. Petersburg
Oh,
because
you were born in
my
St.
mom came from Crimea to give birth, but my parents were living in Crimea already when she was pregnant.
Doesn't that make you Ukrainian?
No,
Because
so
it was not annexed.
so
yet.
I was born in 1986 when it was Soviet Union. And the reason why we were in Crimea because my father was a Soviet Navy officer and he was serving there. So we don't have connection with Ukraine. But as many people who live in Crimea now, not many people are connected to Ukraine. That's why some people in Russia think it's owed to be Russian. But obviously, like, it was a decision to make it Ukraine when USSR dissolved. So the annexation doesn't have any sense. Like,
Okay, so it sounds like there are like two kinds of people in Russia now. People who listen to the propaganda and believe it, and people who do not believe the propaganda and understand what's actually happening.
yes.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, so I think there are people who just basically average people who watch TV and believe it. They were moved slowly, step by step, to kind of to a logical explanation of the war and the annexation, as they do on the media. But I haven't been watching TV since I was 16 years old, and you as well. Like, my husband didn't watch TV, and like we kind of like more international people watching YouTube or like kind of like well thought sources, and we are kind of like more with European side of
So,
overview.
what's your feeling about the conflict, about the war? What's your feeling
About the current or the Crimea or
the current
altogether?
conflict?
Well, yeah, of course, that like this is absolutely not how countries should behave now, and it's said that just one aggressive behavior of one particular person, it's not even an organization, like everybody knows that it's just simply Putin's ambition. And everybody knows that he's getting older. He doesn't understand what he's doing. Like, it's clear that it's just insane male person who ended up like ruling the country, now killing all these people in Ukraine. And like, yeah, most of the Russians, of course, some days ago, somebody voted for Putin, but what it has become through the years, it's absolutely insane. And of course, it's not what country as a whole opinion, like, oh yeah, we need to kill Ukrainians. I think it's like Putin's decision to follow his ambition, and then he explained it through the media. So some people who wouldn't follow through with the war if they wouldn't be manipulated through the media.
Right.
So yeah, it basically goes to one person.
Would you agree? Do you have family still in Russia?
In Belarus.
In Belarus. So do they feel positive or negative towards Ukraine?
Относятся ли они негативно к
К
войне?
Украине,
Как?
toward Ukraine. His
Ukraine?
family.
No.
So his
Ukrainians,
family.
friends.
Friends.
Yeah, his family actually is quite close to the border because I lived in St. Petersburg, he lived in St. Petersburg, it's quite far from the war. His family is in Belarus, quite close to the Ukrainian border. So they were witnessing, like, when the war started, they were witnessing the tanks and all military going through the Belarus when the invasion started. So I think the people there, like, they were panicking a little bit more because they knew they could be kind of in the center or like of the actual war activities.
Are you concerned that perhaps if you go into Russia that they might say, "Congratulations, you're in the army now"?
Что?
И ты волнуешься, что если ты в Россию типа поедешь, что они могут тебе сказать, что ты поздравляем, ты теперь в армии?
Нет, я уже не пригоден к службе, как это?
Yeah, so he, how do you say it?
По
He is not
возрасту.
allowed, or he is older than the age you go to serve, so he's 34.
So I've already completed, gotten old enough that I would not be the first.
Yeah, and
Like
which
me.
is a good relief, good relief
You're,
for
you're
us.
a young man. I'm an old man.
And also, we like when he goes to Russia, but he's citizen of Belarus, so Russians will not take Belarus guy.
Okay.
But yeah, it at some point in the beginning of the war, it was a concern for his brother as well. Well, when I immigrated to UK, in general, I feel very welcomed in the country. I think it's just because of the culture of UK, because of diversity of the UK. And maybe Estonia is not a place where you would feel the same way here. But I would say, like, all people who are coming from Ukraine, they have a right to apply for residency. And even if they're doing it in these circumstances that are not very good, they probably would never leave Ukraine just because of fear of not knowing what would I do there. And the amount of jobs that created for Ukrainians people, the amount of help as just like you can get a residency just because you're Ukrainian. This is something that people would really want. Some Ukrainians would really want, maybe. And maybe it sounds strange for me as a Russian who wasn't in the war activities. I wasn't really fleeing from the war, but I know that a lot of people who were around me would want to immigrate, either in Ukraine or in Russia. And now they have this possibility. I've seen a few people who are working here in Estonia in a kind of simple jobs in bank, like welcoming people, and they have a badges Russian and Ukrainian. So I could see people who made it well. They moved here and they feel like, oh, I'm in Europe, I'm working. And of course they can sometimes have a weight of a grief or a weight of oh my God, what's future holds. But still, they're in Europe. It's a better place, and they can move inside Europe and have a better life than they had before.